there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid bombastic twits in the Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Thursday. We have a tremendous amount of stuff to talk about on the show today. Of course, we're going to have some fallout. I guess fallout's the right word. Maybe reaction might be a better word to yesterday's podcast, which, needless to say, has old Uggie, Senator Ogden Driscoll, tied up in knots. That podcast has him so twisted up, he has no idea which way is up or down. So we're going to have some reaction to the Ogden Driscoll podcast, but we're going to do that at the top of the second hour. There's a lot of different stuff to talk about before then. Also, a phone interview with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. We're going to do that one in, probably 10 or 15 minutes or so. It's a pretty interesting interview, and it is also an example of what happens to phone service in Wyoming. Specifically, when you're traveling from Casper to Shoshone, you can hear what the Congresswoman is saying, but at times it's a little bit hard. But anyway, we're going to play that interview at probably quarter past the hour. We'll see how it goes. But I want to begin with something I don't think that I've showed you on the program. And, Agent 29, if you're not going to toot your own horn, nobody else is going to do it for you. So I see no reason why we shouldn't just boast a little bit. FeedSpot has, they're an outfit that does a lot of different ratings about podcasts. I mean, you can find a different rating for just about anything. The top Wyoming podcast, the top Wyoming conservative podcasts. But this one, what I'm showing you is the 100 best conservative podcasts. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but this page has been viewed 72,000 times. And it's only the podcast wonks that look at ratings. But there's some pretty interesting people on the list. There's number one is Ben Shapiro, then Allie Beth Stuckey. I really like her show, though I don't watch it as much as I would like. There's Matt Walsh, Steve Deace, Daniel Horowitz, Michael Knowles, Ted Cruz, a whole bunch of other people that you've definitely heard of. There's Charlie Kirk at number 10. And if we go all the way down, and it's not that far, but number 33 is Cowboy State Politics on the list of the 100 podcasts, best conservative podcasts in the entire country. So I'm very, very proud of this. It did drop to number 37 for a little bit. This thing is updated, continually. But Cowboy State Politics is the 33rd podcast in the country right now. So pretty cool, right? I mean, I don't know of any other Wyoming podcast shows that can boast numbers like this.
You're also not a professional, right?
Well, no.
We've heard a lot of things about your lack of professionalism, that
That's
you're
true.
Just a two-bit nothing.
Third
Yeah.
rate.
Third rate. Well, I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, third-rate podcast that I'm not professional, that I don't know what I'm doing. And, the only thing I do is rely on sound bites. But we'll get to those when we talk about Ogden Driscoll. But Cowboy State Politics is the 33rd number 33 on the list of 100 podcasts. And I suppose I should say the top 40, top 40 podcasts in the country. I'm really proud of it. And you should be proud of it as well, because this is all you're doing. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. And it's, I am eternally grateful for you listening, for you watching, for you paying attention. And it really warms my heart. And I can't tell you, I don't have the words to explain to you how big of a place in my heart that you take up. So thank you very much. Number 33 on the 100 podcasts that you should be listening to in 2025. Pretty darn cool, if you ask me. So yesterday, there was... I guess yesterday was just the fireworks day. It wasn't just my podcast with Ogden Driscoll, which, by the way, he is still teeing off on. One of the first things I saw this morning was, there's Augie at it again. But also there were some fireworks in the Minerals Committee again, and it was Representative Chris Knapp removing Tom Lubnow from the agenda, and this might be a little bit of inside baseball. But every time a legislative committee meets, and really any deliberative body, whether it's your local Elks Club or the GOP or the legislature, they have an agenda for the meeting. And they distribute. I mean, you walk in and you can see the agenda. When you're at the legislature, the agenda is posted on the screens outside. They don't print up an agenda for every committee meeting, and it's simply because things happen so fast. And you might have a committee meeting that's scheduled, I don't know, in the morning, and they have to meet in the afternoon. Doesn't that happen with appropriations, Ken? That sometimes you guys have quick meetings you have to do.
Nothing ever happens in appropriations. Trust me, you don't want to watch. No, it does, and it does have a tendency to change quickly, trying to react to the events of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So my point is that they don't actually print up a paper agenda. You can go look at the screen outside, and it'll tell you, all right, these are the topics that are going to be covered by the Judiciary Committee or Minerals or whatever.
Yeah, the committee members, we get a printed agenda, and it's always wrong.
Always. Right. And so when you walk into the Capitol Extension, you'll see there's at least 2 screens. There might be 3. But it kind of cycles through the different committees that are meeting, and the agenda is printed there. Well, Tom Lubnow was on the agenda, and I guess first we should back up and tell you who Tom Lubnow is. He's a lawyer over in Gillette. He is one of the original founders of the Frontier Republicans, the liberal Republican group that formed when the conservatives took over the Wyoming GOP. He is a whiny liberal that's been hiding in the Republican Party for his entire career.
He would prefer that you start off with former Speaker of the House.
Well, no, that's down on the list, because I don't think that his time as Speaker of the House was all that notable.
Well,
and here's why, Ken, because he was Speaker of the House. He was the guy. He had the gavel. One of those things that's up on the shelf. He was the man in charge. He could direct the agenda of what was happening in the House, and almost all of the problems that he complains about right now, he had an opportunity to fix. But you'll notice he didn't do it. He didn't fix all these problems that he's complaining about now. So that's why I put Speaker of the House down on the list. Well, anyway, now he works for the Cowboy and his crappy law firm. Actually, the truth is, it's actually a pretty prominent law firm. As far as like public records law goes, it's probably Lubnow who's got the corner on the market there. Well, anyway, he was on the agenda in a legislative committee to talk about public records, and because of his recent columns that he's written, Representative Chris Knapp, who is a co-chairman of the committee, is it corporations? Is that which committee was it that Chris was co-chairing and they removed Tom Lubnow? I think it was corporations, wasn't it?
I think it was corporations. To be honest, it gets a little bit muddled in my mind.
Well, I'm sure it does. In fact, I know it was corporations because Senator Nancy Case is the co-chairman of that committee. Well, because of recent columns, Representative Chris Knapp had Tom Lubnow removed off of the agenda. Now, he's not going to prevent him from speaking. He's just not going to have a space on the agenda.
He's not going to allow him 30 or 40 minutes to pontificate.
Exactly. And that's the reason why Chairman Knapp removed him, is he didn't want Tom to have 30 minutes to sit up there and tell them how terrible the Freedom Caucus is, which is what Tom Lubnow does in his column. I mean, like repeatedly. And I've got a couple of them printed out here, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But now Tom Lubnow he is complaining that Chris Knapp took away his freedom of speech and silenced him. No, he didn't silence him. He just took him off the agenda. Lubnow is able to testify in front of the committee just like every other ordinary citizen. So no, he didn't take away his free speech. He just removed him off the agenda. Now, I think that this was, and I love Chris Knapp. I think he does a great job. I mean, he's personally a very, very nice person. But he's also kind of no nonsense, and he's not going to give somebody like Tom Lubnow a platform to, like Ken said, to pontificate for 30 minutes. Now, I think it was mishandled, and we can talk about that for a little bit, Ken. I think it'd be an interesting discussion. If it were me, I would have put him front and center and guaranteed him 30 minutes, and then I would have hammered him with about 20 questions over all of the columns that he's written. Explain this, Mr. Lubnow. Explain this one. You said this, and I quote, explain it. And I would have just hammered him. But what do you think, 29?
I'm not about to second guess Chris.
Oh, no. I mean, just in theory, right? You know,
Yeah,
hindsight's always 20/20.
He does a great job. I have a little bit of a video to illustrate what perhaps I might have done. You never know until you're actually there.
Oh, you have that video.
I do. Back in Minerals, Tara Nethercott, Senator
Slithers.
Nethercott.
Her name is Slithers on this program. I realize you probably can't call her that. I can't, though.
She jumped into a lull when they introduced that the legislators were going to speak first, and she got up on her soapbox and basically spouted off a bunch of drivel that, actions speak louder than words. And when you watch how she performs, how she goes, and how she operates, what she said was as disingenuous as a $3 bill. But I want to play a little bit of that, if I may.
Yeah, hold on. Before you hit that, let me just kind of give you a little bit of background. And if you've never testified in front of a legislative committee, first, what the heck are you waiting for? But second, if you are one of these people that can't take off work and go down to the legislature and testify, here's what you'll find. Typically, they'll allow all of the agencies and lobbyists to testify first. So if you're, from the Department of Revenue, for example, you can testify first. If you're a lobbyist for, like, say, the Wyoming County Commissioners Association, you get to testify. And then most chairmen, not good conservative ones like Chris Knapp or John Baer or you're co-chairman on appropriations, but most of them will say, all right, are there any legislators that want to testify? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you legislators get to talk to each other all the time, and you do a lot of talking on the floor.
Well, and as far as I know, that's been the procedure for a long time, as long as I've been watching them. So that's one of the disingenuous things that gets brought up here.
And then, very last, they'll open up the microphone for the general public. So the very people that employ all of these elected representatives and senators, the very people that pay their paychecks, that they are there to represent, get to testify last.
The people that took time off from work that are not getting paid to be there, that came halfway across the state and sat there for 3 or 4 hours listening to somebody like Lloyd Larson dribble on forever.
Yep. They get to testify last. And typically, if it's when Steve Harshman was the chairman, what he'd say is, well, we've got, looks like we've got 15 minutes left after the lobbyists and after the legislators and after the agencies have all testified. He'll say, well, looks like we've got 15 minutes left. Whomever wants to testify, I don't care how you use your time, but, the longer you talk, the fewer amount of people. That's it. And then a lot of times the general public gets cut off and you don't get to testify at all. That's how it works. Now, your soundbite.
So a couple of things there. I'm going to put this up in freeze frame for a second. And you notice out the window there, you see, what is it, green and black and white stripes?
Yeah.
You just mentioned Steve Harshman. That's the Steve Harshman Memorial Football Palace.
Of course it is.
When you sit there in the Thyra Thompson building and you look out the window behind them, it shows this palatial football stadium built for Natrona County High School.
Well,
And-
complete with the walkway.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't want your football players to get out in the rain before they have to go play. So.
Yeah. So $2 million on a walkway.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to hit play here and let this go. There's a little bit of a lull at the beginning, but I think it's important because it puts it in context, and you can see that Senator Nethercott has kind of taken advantage of a lull and jumped in to.
Fill the lull.
You decide for yourself how to describe it. Here it goes.
Chairman. No other questions? We look forward to you staying around tonight till the wee hours of the morning.
Okay.
Whatever it takes.
So let me just stop that for a
Thank
second.
you.
All right, thank you.
What has just happened is they have gone on and on and on. Boyd Larson,
hours.
for others, have gone on for hours. Basically, I think, trying to wear down the will of the folks that are there to testify. And indeed, a lot of them did have to leave. But finally, when they could withstand it no longer.
Now we're going to start the public
Now.
input. And we're going to start with legislators. Any legislators in the room want to talk?
At this point, Bill Alleman gets up and begins to move to the table.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is a new practice of the Wyoming legislature to allow legislators to
not.
dominate
No,
the
it's not.
conversation from we the people. And so I would just like to let that be known that the purpose of the public meeting is to hear from you, because I can hear from my colleagues all the time.
All the
So
time.
I just want to caution us from pontificating a little too much about our opinions on the topic and rather hear from those that don't have access to us as frequently in this public forum. So as the hour is 4 p.m.
Okay. All right.
and all they
All right. So, I mean, absolutely disingenuous. She's lying because there have been lots of committees where Tara Nethercott Slithers has had the gavel and she has put the public last. Okay. So don't believe a word that's coming out of her mouth. However, she is right that you legislators can testify amongst yourselves all day long.
Exactly, and that's my point regarding the situation with Chris Knapp and Tom Lubnow.
Right.
As we all know, let me find the right button here. Tom has, due to the graciousness of the cow pie and the fact that he is friends with a great many of the people that are in the legislature because he was there, he has a platform unparalleled for most people.
Not unparalleled compared to this program. Okay, actually, it kind of is.
I did say most people.
That's true. You did.
Anyway, it is so disingenuous on her point, and I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, which I like to say in the same breath with Tara.
Well, that's kind of what you guys do. I mean, have you been to Cheyenne?
Yeah,
Well, I think the point you're
I
trying to
have
make.
been there.
Don't remind him. But I think the point here is that Tom Lubnow does have a platform. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't get to testify in front of the committee. Absolutely, he should. But there's no reason why he needs to be given agenda time. And Chairman Knapp removed him. Now, let me give you a couple of reasons why he did. Because Lubnow, and first, let me just read to you what his rebuttal says. So he's written another column, and it hit the cow pie yesterday. And here's what he says, quote, "Credibility is the stock in trade of a political opinion columnist." Now, this is Tom Lubnow talking about credibility. But anyway, here's the next line.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I try to share opinions based soundly on fact. I don't even know what to say to that, except, of course, it's the words Tom Lubnow and fact rarely appear in any sentences unless he's written them. And he says, I also hope that any bias I might have must be readily apparent. Quote, "Last week I wrote about a poorly drafted bill aimed at removing pornography from libraries. I argued the bill was a waste of time, poorly drafted, and had holes in the bill so big you could sail Wyoming's aircraft carrier through them." Okay, so first, I don't think we have an aircraft carrier. We did have the USS Wyoming, which, just like Tom Lubnow's reasoning, usually ends sinking to the bottom of the ocean. So he wrote a previous column entitled, quote, calling innocent people pornographers and pedophiles at taxpayer expense. One of the lines out of it says, quote, and pardon my language here, but I'm quoting, so the Freedom Caucus has proposed this dumbass bill with a sexy title. Now you read this thing, and this opinion piece is nothing more than a litany of insults directed right at the Freedom Caucus. Let's see here. The bill is so full of defects, I cannot describe them in this column. Let's look at a couple of the low points. He repeatedly calls the bill stupid and dumb, which I do often, but this is my opinion show, and it's kind of my shtick to call it as I see it. And Tom Lubnow, well, I mean, he writes stuff purely based on fact. Here's another one. Quote, the bill is not limited to sexually explicit materials that are part of the library's collection. Anytime any person has sexually explicit material in the library is liable. The bill says no sexually explicit material, period. Get ready for your body cavity searches of anyone trying to smuggle a Cosmopolitan magazine into the library. That's just one example from his column. Now, it is entirely the chairman's prerogative to put somebody on the agenda or remove them. And in this case, based upon the numerous columns that Tom Lubnow has written about the Freedom Caucus, and this is just one example. It may not even be the worst one, but it is the most recent one. Chairman Knapp didn't want to hear Tom Lubnow up there at the dais, or at least give him time on the agenda anyway.
Yeah, Tom's not interested in any kind of a fair and honest debate about the issues.
No, he's not an honest broker.
Very clear.
He never has been, which is why he helped start the Frontier Republicans, which is why he attacks the Freedom Caucus in any way he could possibly think up, most of the time illegitimately. But anyway, I disagree with the decision, how Chairman Knapp handled it. I'm not saying he was wrong for removing him off the agenda. I'm disagreeing because I would have wanted him front and center to hammer him for 30 minutes about his stupid column. But anyway, see, there I am calling him stupid. But it's my show, and I can do that. And I'm not claiming that this show isn't about opinion, because it is.
That's something that you and I have talked about quite a bit, and I just want to say something about that.
Sure.
I think I've mentioned it once before, but at some point people are going to criticize me for being a sitting legislator and partaking in this show.
Yes.
There are a number of legislators who take advantage of the Cowboy or other platforms out there all the time, who are catered to, kowtowed by Wildfile, free advertising, whatever,
Yep.
especially during that. I didn't do that. You don't see me on most of the other ones because, frankly, they don't even call and ask.
No.
I've been in office almost 2 terms, and Sheridan Media has never called me.
Right. Well, yeah.
I'm got some boring.
Well, I don't think so. But here's a great example. Not to steal your thunder, but during the last legislative session, if you looked at the Sheridan Press, and actually the Sheridan Press did an okay job during the legislative session. They did a profile of you and your wife Diane, which I thought was pretty well done.
Joseph's been pretty fair. Not necessarily so much the rest of them, but a lot of those people are gone.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Sheridan Media, the other media outfit in Sheridan, which, by the way, that reminds me. Oh yeah. So the chalkboard is okay. I have a habit of not writing on the chalkboard, even though it's one of my favorite things in the studio. Anyway, total squirrel moment. Sheridan Media, if you paid attention, just about twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, it would be every other legislator: Poison Barry Crago, Dumb as a Box of Rocks, Marilyn Connolly, over and over and over. But not a single time did they call Representative Pendergraft and ask for his opinion. Not one time. And yet it was Poison Barry Crago and Representative Cannoli over and over and over.
The way that I wanted to end that discussion is say,
Oops.
I'm not taking, yeah, that's okay. I appreciate your comments. They're accurate. I didn't take advantage of somebody else's platform. Maybe a little bit yours.
Okay, well,
but I'd like to think that you and I have built this platform a lot together. We've had a lot to do with that. But if you look around the studio here, and I've got an angle up, this is my stuff.
Yeah, most of it is.
Bought and paid for. Yeah, most of it is. Bought and paid for myself. The platform you built, I built another, and we kind of men
put
to
it
them.
together.
But my point is that we're not standing on the shoulders of somebody else. We did this ourselves. You didn't build that.
Yeah, you're gonna build that. Yeah. Well, I mean that's exactly it.
And I can say I'm still a citizen. I'm a part-time
Yeah.
citizen legislator.
Well,
And I can say whatever the hell I want on my own platform.
Well, and here's the other thing too, Ken. The insiders, as Chuck Gray calls them, they make every effort to try to beat down conservatives. Oh, how dare you state your opinion? You're an elected representative. You know, you represent the people. You're not supposed to have your opinion. That's bullcrap. The insiders, Ogden Driscoll, Chicom Sam, he still writes an occasional column, but all the time they were writing op-eds, Senator Slithers, you name it. They used the cow pie, wild pile, the Wyoming turkey vulture. Occasionally they'll write an op-ed and send it to places like the Buffalo Bull Crap. But they take advantage of, you know, other people's platforms, and they're constantly throwing out their opinion. But if you're a conservative, oh no, how dare you state your opinion? And if you do, the next column will be about you. And in my opinion, you guys need to start pushing back against these. Well, I have a couple of adjectives I could use there. See, did you notice I just censored myself? Are you proud of me? But you know, I say you guys need to start pushing back. And there's no reason why you can't have an opinion. Frankly, I've run into a couple of your constituents, 29, that they've flat told me, well, we don't agree with Pendergraft on a lot of stuff, but we know where he stands, and we'll continue to vote for that. So anyway, wow, we went on a long time about that. Well, let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll do the Harriet Hageman interview. It's pretty interesting, lots of current event stuff in there, but we'll do that next. It's spring-ish in Wyoming. Well, what that means for the uninitiated is that it's going to be 70 degrees one day and then snow 1.5 feet the next. And really, if you don't like those two options, just wait a little bit. The weather will change. I know, it sounds a little stressful, but really you should put your mind at ease and buy a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They'll keep you warm and dry even on the nastiest, coldest spring-ish day, and they'll keep you cool and dry even when it's 75 and sunny. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely, and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Number 33 on the Top 40 podcast you need to be listening to in 2025. This is Cowboy State Politics. I'm your host, David Iverson. Documented to be almost always right, 99% of the time. You can listen to watch the program on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble. And when I finally figure it out, we'll be broadcasting to Instagram as well. I've been told by Gabe Saint that Instagram is the place to be if you want to reach young people. It is not Facebook. Speaking of Mr. Gabe Saint, tomorrow on the program on Open Line Friday, we're going to play for you an interview with President of Turning Point USA at the University of Wyoming, Gabe Saint. It's a great interview, and you don't want to miss it. And it kind of brings up another point. If you want to talk to, hear from the movers and shakers of what's happening in Wyoming politics, this is the place where you're going to hear it. We've got more interviews with people than I think any other platform. And I mean, the Cowboy has a lot too, but not the interesting people that we talk to.
I found that interview with Gabe really enlightening for me. Because, he's several generations removed from myself.
Well, most people are, Ken.
Yeah, and I found myself, while I agree with his principles, well, you'll hear it in the interview, but there are some differences there, and they have to do with perspective, and I thought it was fascinating.
Oh, I thought it was an incredible view into what's going on with young people, and so anyway, we're going to play that interview tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. It's a great discussion. With somebody who is at least, I wouldn't say principally responsible, but played a big part in returning free speech to the University of Wyoming. So we're going to do that tomorrow. But right now on Cowboy State Politics, yesterday we had a discussion with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman, and she was on the phone traveling between Casper and Shoshone. And there are parts of this that are kind of hard to hear. One of the disadvantages of traveling long distances on Wyoming's highways and byways. But you can still, if you pay attention, you can still hear what she says. Here's my discussion with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. Hit it. Joining me on the phone is U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. Harriet, welcome back to the program.
Hey, David, it's so good to be with you, and it's good to be back in Wyoming.
Excellent. So how long are you back this time around?
Well, we're on our August recess.
Okay.
So as you may have seen, I was in Israel for a week, but now I am back in Wyoming, and I'm doing town halls. I'm in Casper right now. We're getting ready to head out to Shoshone.
Excellent. A quick question about Israel. I've always wanted to go there. And I mean, there's so many things that I would love to see, be able to pray at the Western Wall. Did you get any time to go do any sightseeing, or was it jam-packed full of meetings?
The sightseeing was the meeting. So yes, we got to see the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. We were on the southern edge of the old city. We were able to go underground into the tunnels where they have uncovered the walkway between the pool where Jesus bathed the folks who were coming there to go to the temple. But it was. Most of what we were doing was in the context of the history, the current conflict, the long-term conflict, what is going on in the Middle East, what are the interests of America, how many Americans live there, what is the relationship between Israel and the United States. So we went from about 7 in the morning till about 10 o'clock every single night with meeting with people. The sightseeing that we did get one moment where we got 25 minutes to go into a store, and that was it. The rest of the time was very, very intense, but that's what it should be. And I learned a ton. We'll be putting out more information in that regard. But, in light of what is going on around the world right now, what is going on in the Middle East, I felt that it was incredibly important that I get a firsthand look and understand the geopolitical issues there. And I would say that my knowledge today versus 10 days ago is just, they're not even the same. We went to a kibbutz. We went to look at the Syrian border and the risks up there and what the challenges are trying to keep people safe. It is just it's a very, very complicated area.
Yeah, and I mean there's so much stuff online, in support of Israel, very much against supporting the conflict, Israel's conflict in Gaza. I mean, it's really hard to get a beat on what's actually happening. So I'm really glad you were able to take a trip, and I'd love to talk to you about at length about that a little bit later. But I have a couple of quick questions for you since we have limited time this morning. Probably the biggest thing that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now is the National Guard taking over law enforcement in our nation's capital. Could you tell me how that works? How is that legal? I mean, how long can the president do that? I'm really kind of ignorant on the whole subject. So just try to fill me in if you can.
I would look at it a little bit differently. Rather than taking over law enforcement, they are working with law enforcement. And I think one of the things that is very important and why I wanted to make that clarification is the police department in Washington, D.C. is welcoming this move. And what this is just an opportunity, I think, so that they can take a step back, try to get control of the crime, try to figure out where these, the infestation of the criminals are, root them out, and try to make the entire city safer. We have all heard about the incidents of late. The young intern who worked for Ron Estes out of Kansas, gunned down in cold blood, wasn't even the target, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The young gentleman who worked for Doge was beaten up last week. The fact is that there are very serious challenges in Washington, D.C., and what the president has done, and it's my understanding that he has 30 days to do this, and then Congress must act. But keep in mind, Congress oversees Washington, D.C. That's one of the reasons when they talk about D.C. statehood and things, you'd have to change the Constitution in order to do that. D.C. is not a state. D.C. is the location of the federal government. It was intended it would not be a state, that it would be specifically for the federal government so that you wouldn't have any one state that would have that kind of power or authority. So we oversee it, and I assume that when we get back, this is one of the first things that we will take up, is to try to find a way to better shore up the police forces and the resources there in Washington, D.C. Now, you and I were talking offline for a minute that, as you said so eloquently, that if President Trump said oxygen was good for you, that the Democrats would stop breathing. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. I mean, the outrage and the Democrats coming out screaming about, he's a dictator, he's this or that. First of all, I wish they'd read. I wish they'd read the Constitution. I wish they'd read what the laws are so that they understand them before they start spelling off. That's number one. But number two, what I cannot for the life of me figure out, why is it that they always take the side of the criminal? Why do they always take the side of the illegal? Why is it that Jocelyn Nungaray had to be raped and lose her life for anybody to pay any attention to her while we coddle illegal aliens that come into our country and commit heinous crimes? Why do they always take the wrong side when it comes to these issues?
It's amazing. I mean, it is almost as if they really want crime and they really want chaos. And I think in some cases that's probably true. A couple of other things that I wanted to visit with you about. I've gotten a couple of emails recently, one about the highway funding, transparency, greater flexibility bill, and then the VALID Act being included in the Road Housing Act. So I guess first, can you tell me what you're doing with highway funding, and then we'll talk about the Road Housing Act?
So, David, you know me, and I am always trying to bring the power and the authority back to the states and the local government. I just truly believe decision-making out of Washington, D.C. is not going to be nearly as productive as it will be if we make the decisions here. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to loosen up some of the funds. Right now, our Department of Transportation, they have funds that they can actually move about 50% of their federal money around to different projects. All we're doing is increasing that to 75%. And what I refer to is, let's say that you've got a road project that you're planning on doing their truck water, and then you have a road wash out there in Wyoming. This will give our state officials the authority and the ability to move the money around to deal with an emergency situation if they need to, or if there's something that has developed that they need to prioritize something over something else. Like what we saw up near Jackson. Nobody expected that road, Highway 22, to wash out 2 years ago,
right.
But then it happened. And then we need the flexibility to go in there and be able to fix it. So it's just a matter of trying to clean up a few things so that the local decision makers have more authority.
Excellent. All right. So the VALID Act, and I was trying to read through your email real quick just to figure out what was going on. But I guess two questions. One, can you tell me what that does, and then why it's important that it get passed and its inclusion in the Road Housing Act?
Well, again, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make sure that we have more local authority and more responsibility. Again, one of the other things that I really wanted to quickly touch base
Sure.
with you on related to this issue of the transportation side of things. I don't know if you saw last week, but Sean Duffy came out and indicated that they have now taken 1,500 truck drivers off the road that cannot speak or read English.
Yeah, I did
I don't
see
know
that.
if you saw that.
Yeah.
And, that originated from the work that we did earlier this year of notifying them that we had a real problem with non-English speaking drivers. Now, a lot of these folks come from like Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia, countries like that, and they cannot read our language. They cannot read English. And as a result, they don't know what the signs say as they're driving down the highways. And you and I both understand we have to look at those digital signs if there's a ice ahead, black ice ahead, high wind warnings, those kinds of things, especially in the winter. And the accidents have absolutely skyrocketed. Especially across I-80 in both Nebraska and Wyoming with all of these non-English speaking, non-English reading truck drivers. And we're getting some real results with that. And I'm very excited and very proud of that work.
Excellent. Good. And it's baffling to me that, I have a hard enough time checking out all of the exit signs and reading, figuring out where I'm going in a larger town. I can't imagine how somebody who doesn't even speak the language can get around. And, that we allow those people on our roads is even more frightening. But it's just absolutely amazing to me. All right. So veterans, the Road Housing Act, what's going on with that?
I don't know that I can answer that, David, right
Okay.
now. When we get back, we'll be addressing that in further detail.
Okay. All right. All right. So is there anything else going on? You said you were over in Shoshone. Do you have a couple of town halls planned?
We do. Tomorrow we're going to be in Du Bois at noon. We're going to be in Du Bois on Thursday at noon. And then today we're renaming the post office in Shoshone for Eli Bebout's mother. And that's part of why I really wanted to be there, because she was there for decades and decades. And it's very important, I think, that we honor her for all the work that she has done over the years. In terms of veterans, we're continuing to work to make sure that our Sheridan VA, which provides services for the majority of the state of Wyoming, that they're meeting the needs of our service members. And we've had some real breakdowns up there over the last couple of years. It's actually been longer than that. This has been a long-standing problem. And one of the things that my office has done, and why we're bringing this type of legislation, is we're trying to make sure that our veterans are able to receive the services that they're entitled to. Wyoming has particular challenges because we have the VA in Sheridan, but if you live in Evanston, you're going to need to treat there. And one of the challenges that we have had with our Sheridan VA is they want the care that they place in Sheridan rather than with the community care. And so we've actually brought out people from the staffers from the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee so that they can see exactly what's going on, talk to the people who are working in the VA. Because again, the purpose of the VA is not for everything to be stockpiled and located within Sheridan, but actually to make sure that our veterans receive the care where they live, where they need it, with their primary care physician. So that's part of why we're pursuing this type of legislation as well as the investigations that we're doing, because we have not been serving our veterans the way that we need to. And this is an issue that has been brought to my attention from the very moment that I took office. And we are adamant that we're going to fix this for our veterans. And you know what? There are some great people who work at the veterans facility in Sheridan. I'm not trying to be critical of any one person, but I think sometimes we lose sight of who the constituents are, and they are the veterans. And under our commitment to them, we need to make sure that we are providing them with the services that they need where they're located.
All right. Thanks. Ken's got a question for you.
Hi, Harriet. This is Ken.
I can.
I have heard a lot, and I sent you 2 referrals over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure that's part of what brought this up with problems with the VA. But there's another problem that you may or may not be able to comment on, and that has to do with the use of TRICARE. Our veterans have a program called TRICARE, which pays for a lot of the subscriptions that they get. But the local pharmacies in many cases are unable to fill those prescriptions or be able to work with TRICARE. And so these guys are relegated to ordering everything by the mail. And we all can imagine, especially in the wintertime, some of those things get a little dicey. Are you able to shed any light on what might be able to be done there?
So again, that is kind of dovetailing a lot of what I have been working on since I got into Congress, trying to make sure that we have the reliable postal services in the state of Wyoming. And this is one of the issues that I have raised repeatedly with the U.S. Postal Service, is that again, in a rural state like Wyoming, a lot of times our veterans are receiving their medications through the mail. And so when they did the quote delivering for America plan, the U.S. Postal Service in the last U.S. Postmaster, Wyoming and South Dakota were going to be the two states that were affected the most. And we just absolutely raised holy heck over that, because we just said you can't do that, in large part because of the impact on our veterans. We continue to try to work with the Postal Service to make sure that we can improve the services that we have here in Wyoming. But I also understand that those are challenges that we have. So I guess what I would ask you to do, Ken, is if there is a particular person that is having a problem with getting their prescriptions, have them get a hold of our office, and let's see if we can figure out something for those particular individuals.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, Harriet, I know this has been kind of a quick interview, but I got to run. Thank you very much for taking the time to visit with me, and just keep me posted on whatever's going on.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Ken.
Have a good afternoon, Harriet.
Bye.
Well, there you go. The interview with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman, and as you can tell, it's a pretty good example of what happens when you're driving, in the middle of nowhere between Casper and Shoshone. But I think it was at least informative, and there was quite a bit of stuff in there. I think it's amazing that we get to talk to Harriet once or twice a month on the program. And again, it's just another example, Ken, of who would have thought 5 years ago that we'd be in the situation that we're in, able to talk to the really cool people that we can. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's all thanks to you, my friends. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the program. And thank the good Lord for blessing us with the ability to do with what we do. I mean, without him, we got nothing. And that pretty much goes, across the entire board. So yesterday on the podcast, it was entitled "The World According to Ogden." And the best thing that I can say, or the best piece of advice that I can give to old Augie, is something Mr. Mark Twain said: never pick a fight with a guy that buys ink by the barrel, or electrons, as the case may be. Pretty dumb to pick a fight with somebody like me. But we know that Augie is not exactly the smartest person in the room. And so he did. And I took it upon myself to give you a pretty solid history of Ogden Driscoll. And so let me just play for you a bit from the podcast, and then we're going to talk about some of the reaction to it. This has been one of the most responded to episodes I've published in a while. Augie must have known it was coming, because about 20 minutes after this thing hit, he was on it already trying to defend himself. But anyway, let's go ahead and play cut number 2, Ken, The World According to Ogden. Listen to this. Let me just give you a quick example before we continue. When Ogden was the Senate president, he accused the entire chamber of being an idiot, an action that, again, he would have gavelled anybody else down, but because it's Ogden Driscoll and he was the Senate president, it was totally okay. Listen to this.
Is there going to be any rulings that come out of that chair that don't get appealed? If you don't like it, you just jump up and say, I appeal strongly. Well, you know what? This is what Washington, D.C. does, and we're heading down that path, and it's unbelievable. I'm imploring you to put a stop.
Stop questioning me.
Idiocy of what's going on, and I'll call it idiocy. This is sad.
Uh-huh. It was sad, the way that you were running the Senate chamber. What Ogden Driscoll was complaining about is that he was making arbitrary decisions from the chair, and the members of the Senate were objecting to it and asking the body to overrule the decision of the chair, which is totally within Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. Old Augie just didn't like it that he was being questioned all the time for making such arbitrary decisions. But the point I'm making here is that he called everyone in that room an idiot. And it was completely okay for him because he was Ogden Driscoll. So it's rules for thee, but not for Ogden Driscoll. Let's continue.
I'm not going to go a whole lot past that. We heard testimony earlier that likely the Freedom Caucus is going to kill this. If you guys want to go ahead and do it, that's great. I've watched the votes out of this committee.
In the words of Bill Henderson,
Whoa, I think you got to stop and take a look at what you're doing here. I speak against this because it kind of reminds me of that fairy tale, Cinderella.
it's a fairy tale that Ogden Driscoll's behavior would be allowed anywhere in the legislature, on the floor, in a committee room, in an interim committee. It is absolutely inappropriate to mention anything to do with politics while the legislature is in session. There have been numerous people who've been gavelled down for even saying the word Republican or referring to a caucus while on the floor. And Ogden has been the one with the gavel in his hand while it happened. His hypocrisy knows no bounds, my friends. Okay, that's good
Minerals
enough.
and economic development.
All right, there's plenty more where that came from in the podcast, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what old Augie was so irritated about. He gets pretty mad when the truth about him is out in plain view for all the world to see. And Augie, he's been one of the ones that, man, if it suits his best interest, he's all about it. He doesn't care who he's talking down. And frankly, when you look at that Minerals Committee meeting, which is kind of the genesis of this episode, he doesn't care who's up there. It's Ogden Driscoll, and he can say what he wants. But if it's you and you slip up and say the word Republican or the word platform on the floor, boy, you get gavelled down faster than you could even look around and see what happened.
I think this is also reflective of an attitude of those who have been there for 10, 12, 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
There is a level of condescension that is palpable. And we are these know nothing, you don't know how things are done here, get in line. That was our briefing when the 67th legislature came in is you guys don't know what you're doing yet. If you want to be successful here, you have to learn how to play the game. Do what we tell you. We'll take care of you, and you'll have success. Well, I don't know how they measure success, but the success that the Freedom Caucus and that those of us on the right who work with the Freedom Caucus, it's been phenomenal. And it's got them beside themselves. I mean, when we were having House floor discussions, you had Lloyd Larson, you had Bob Nicholas, you had Steve Harshman. Beside themselves, they have never lost control before.
No, and that's just the point.
It. Yeah.
That's precisely the point, Ken. That for the last 50, 60, maybe longer years, the liberal redcoats have been in charge, and now they're not. And they have no idea what to do. And so the only reaction that they can have is to lash out at whomever is telling the truth about them. So let me just, I don't want to, I don't do this very often, but I think in this case, it's absolutely warranted. Let me just give you Augie's first response to yesterday's episode. And this is from Ogden Driscoll. You can still see it. It's a comment on the post from Cowboy State Politics.
Wait a second. Didn't you just do a show that said, don't
ignore
respond.
The comments.
Yeah.
Ignore the comments. Right. I just did.
Are you a hypocrite, or can you explain that?
I can explain that because it's my episode and it is entirely appropriate because you have a sitting legislator, Ogden Driscoll, who openly attacks just about everybody. And if you can look through the comments, and in fact, I made 2 of them on there. I just couldn't help myself, and I'll get to those in just a second. But here's the very first thing, 20 minutes after this thing was posted, that Augie said, quote, "Sound bites is what you live on. You actually should try to analyze policy and promote something positive for once in your life. Creating villains and tearing down people may be fun and create a following, but does little or nothing to make Wyoming and its people have a better life." Now, I want you to remember that phrase, because I'm going to use it here in just a second. Make people in Wyoming have a better life.
Hang on just a sec, if I may interject here. Augie, I know you're going to see this.
Oh, yeah.
What you just said there about analyzing policy, that's what we do here.
Yep.
Hour after hour after hour. If you had any idea what you were talking about, that never would have come out of your pen.
It never would have, or his fingertip, as the case may be. Here's how he ends that one. Keep on with the poison. It comes around in the end. Now, here's the first comment that I put on my own post. There's no creation necessary with this one, Ogden. Actually, it says there's no creation necessary with this one. But I want you to remember that phrase. It does little or nothing to make Wyoming and its people have a better life. Well, Ogden, I try, unlike you, to base all of my arguments on facts, and I back up everything that I say to the greatest degree possible. And if it's not, it's my opinion, and it's my show. And the reason why people listen to my show is they want to hear my opinion. If you want your own show, Augie, go make one.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that point. It is our show.
Yeah,
It's your show. It's my show. We created it. We perfected it.
yes.
We built our own platform because the establishment media would have none of my opinions.
No. So I want to take you all the way back to 2021. And this is a piece that I forgot in the episode. And had I not been reminded of it by one of the loyal listeners of Cowboy State Politics, you know who you are. Thank you for reminding me. So let's go back to 2021, right in the middle of COVID. Well, Ogden's wife was very, very sick with COVID. And it was and if you recall, it was pretty hard to get your hands on ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine because across the country, doctors were being prosecuted for prescribing it, which we now know that it absolutely helped. I myself took ivermectin when I got COVID, worked like a charm, felt like I had a bad head cold. But it was with the help of a sitting fellow Wyoming state senator that Ogden Driscoll was able to get his hands on some ivermectin and some hydroxychloroquine for his wife. And thank God that it was able to happen. And I don't say this very often about that senator, but good job in doing that. And you know, we should all thank God when things like that happen. Well, we should thank God all the time, but he saved Ogden's wife. Well, then Ogden goes down to the special session, and there was a bill, Senate File 1012, 1012. It's up on the screen right now, and the title of it was Healthcare Professionals' Right to Prescribe Medication. And this bill would have allowed doctors in the state of Wyoming to prescribe ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And if you look down at the nay votes, guess who voted against it? Hypocrite Ogden Driscoll. Right after he had used the exact same medication to save his family, he voted not to save yours. I don't want to hear anything out of your mouth, Ogden Driscoll. Stop being a hypocrite.
I think that's really good evidence of exactly how we operate here. We back it up with facts. We show the sources when, you know, there are some secret sources we can't do, and that's understandable. Everybody has to be able to do that. But we make an allegation, we play you a soundbite, we play it in context, we make it available on the website, we play it in their own words. We've got several of these things out here. That, I think, from them has got to be incredibly frustrating because nobody has ever done that to them before. Nobody has ever challenged the high white palaces of the establishment legislature.
And I'll tell you, and before COVID, and this is probably why Ogden Driscoll voted the way that he did, is they were used to not having their votes exposed. If there was one good thing that came out of COVID, and I would argue that there was quite a lot, but if there was one good thing that came out, is the legislature was forced to put all of the video of all of the sessions online so you and I could watch it. Now, the votes were always available online, as far back as I've looked, and I've gone back quite a ways. You could always find those, though it's kind of difficult. But the video, it's there. You can watch the debate, you can watch the votes on it, and you can definitely go back. And if you look at this one here, let's see here. This failed Senate introduction on the 26th of October, 2021. You can go back and you can probably listen to Ogden Driscoll vote no. Go ahead and keep this up on the screen, my friend Ken. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue. But go ahead and leave this on the screen for the entire break. We'll have more in just a second.
Ever since gold backing was removed from the dollar, the value has dropped significantly over the past few decades. Experts say this is one of the main reasons goods are more expensive and your savings are worth less each year. How would you know how many dollars to save for retirement if the valuation of the dollar changes over time? Would you work all week for that $20 gold piece? Let's look at the valuation of this coin from the 1970s to today. When President Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971, this coin traded for about $275. Today, it trades for about $14,000. Buying and holding rare coins using only a fraction of your portfolio is our suggested way to save for the future. Call U.S. Coin Capital at 1-800-878-2646 to get your free United States Gold and Silver Buyer's Guide.
Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Welcome to Lessons in Civility by Morton Buildings. Gentlemen, is your garage completely jam-packed full of all of your unnecessary crap? And your lovely wife has been on your tail, nagging you nonstop to clean it out? It's not because she just wants to incessantly irritate you. Chivalry dictates that you should clear out a space so she can park her car inside and you don't end up sleeping on the couch anymore. To do that, contact Nick and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Not only are they the experts in metal building construction, they're also skilled at keeping you out of the doghouse. One more time, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. This has been Lessons in Civility from Morton Buildings. Welcome back to the program, Ogden Driscoll. I hope you're watching, my friend. You know, you might think every once in a while when the truth keeps coming out, maybe you ought to back off a little bit. It won't stop me, though, Augie. This program is all about exposing what happens in Cheyenne, and we're doing it every day with talent given to me by God Almighty himself. Thank you to the good Lord for blessing me with the ability to do what I'm doing and with the ability to bring it to you. Now, over the break, I left this page from the Wyoming legislature up. There we go. And the bill was healthcare professionals' right to prescribe medication. It would have given doctors in the state of Wyoming the ability to prescribe ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. It was sponsored by Anthony Bouchard and Dan Larson. Now, the people that voted for this, the people that actually thought, hey, you know, maybe your doctor knows more than Anthony Fauci and he ought to be able to prescribe whatever medication he deems necessary. Those people are Dennis Beitman, Bonehead, Brian Boner, Anthony Bouchard, Cooper, Ellis, French, James, McEwen, Salazar, Charlie Scott, and Sherry Steinmetz. Now, the people who voted against your doctor's right to prescribe hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin during the middle of the pandemic, something that Ogden Driscoll did for his own family. The people that voted against that are Jim Anderson, Baldwin, Nancy Case, Dan Dockstader, old Augie Ogden Driscoll, Dan Furphy, Kangaroo Mike Giroux, Larry Hicks, I'm really disappointed in that one, Lynn Hutchings, Dave Kinski, John Kolb, Cost, Bill Landon, Slithers Nethercott, Perkins, Rothfuss, Wendy Schuler, and Wasserberger. All of those people voted that your doctor shouldn't be able to give you hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. You talk about the level of hypocrisy. And, I mean, they continue to claim otherwise. Hit that soundbite, Ken.
I, for one, think it's really important. Let's try to keep honest people honest and keep the liars at bay as best we can.
Oh yeah. I really think that we should keep the liars at bay as best we can. It's too bad, Augie, that that's you. That's you, my friend. Now, the fascinating thing about all the comments on that post is Augie goes to great lengths to try to justify his record. Everything from taxes to the budget, everything. Let's see here. Let's read another one here from old Augie. The Freedom Caucus is anything but. They're anti-business, anti-private property rights, willing to do great harm to local governments, not unlike you, Ogden Driscoll, willing to do great harm to Wyoming citizens, with no thought of impacts, willing to pass legislation that they know will be declared unconstitutional. I could go on and on. This without mentioning the lack of ethics or decorum. Ethics or decorum, Augie? Let me just play another little soundbite here. Maybe you remember this one.
You are one of us, okay? You're not an outside group.
So what that one is, that was from 2021 when then Representative Chip Nyman was testifying in front of the Corporations Committee, and he simply asked the members of the legislature to sign a pledge to support runoff election legislation. And Ogden Driscoll from the dais says, "You're one of us now. You're one of us. You're not a member of the public." Meaning, of course, that you need to play our game. You don't need to be representing your constituents any longer. That's what that soundbite means. Now, Ogden Driscoll, I could go on and on. There's 30, 40 comments on here from you, but I think my point has been made that Ogden Driscoll doesn't really know anything about ethics or decorum, or perhaps maybe we should rewind and I can play you the soundbite where he calls out Representative Chris Knapp. I mean, we could go on and on, Ken. I mean, you just tell me when to stop.
Well, you go to that soundbite, and we don't need to pull it up. But he says specifically, "I'm looking right at him."
Yeah.
Person I'm calling out. And then when Chris says, I would call for decorum. And he comes back and says, I'm not talking to individuals, I'm talking to...
What do you want?
He
what
just
decorum
said,
do you want?
I'm looking right at him.
Yep.
You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, the reason why Augie's all pissed off is because now everybody's got a good reminder of where he's at as a legislator and, how he conducts himself and how he conducted the Wyoming legislature. It's rules for thee, but not for Ogden Driscoll.
I want to play one more if you'll allow it.
Go for
this is to set this up just a little bit. We're talking about audits. And when you hear the word audit, you think, oh, that'd be a good thing. Go back and prove the truth. The purpose for the audits that Ogden is talking about here are to make sure that the state is getting every dime in tax revenue we possibly can. Are we out there getting everything? How that money is spent is never audited, and we've had discussions about that before. But listen to this.
Second one, unrelated. How many auditors do we have, and what do we find on compliance? Would we treat ourselves well to have a little beef up in the auditing department?
Would we treat ourselves well? Would we get more revenue by auditing private businesses more?
Now, here's something you probably don't know, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a Department of Audit, but most of the time, and here's the other thing, right? When you audit stuff, it's generally your accounting practices. I mean, it's money that goes out, money that comes in, making sure that everything you're doing is above board. We just recently had a big problem with small towns like Manderson and Kirby when they weren't doing any of their accounting practices, and there was no way that anybody could figure out how they were spending your money. Well, the Department of Audit, they have roughly, and I don't know the exact numbers, employees come and go, but it's around 100 people auditing money that comes in, making sure that the state of Wyoming gets every red cent and silver dime, well, it's not silver dimes anymore, but shiny dimes, that they possibly can. Over 100 people. Wait until I tell you how many people audit what is going out.
Thanks for bringing that up, because when the Freedom Caucus folks came up and said, we need to audit Manderson, we need to call them on the carpet and we need to look at that. The outcry against
it's
us
huge.
was phenomenal. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. And yet here on the other side of the coin, let's go and audit all of them and make sure we're getting all the money we got. I can't stress it enough. Their focus is on how much money can we get,
How much
not
money
on
can
what
they
is
take?
yeah, and not on how much of our money actually is their attitude. Never on how is it spent or how can we do it better.
So there's 100 people that audit the money that is coming in. There are 6 that audit the money that is going out. Now think about how many checks Christy Racines writes on a day in, day out basis, money that the state of Wyoming is spending. It was Ogden Driscoll that slapped $2 billion on top of the budget last year and created the largest budget in Wyoming's history. There's only 6 people that's auditing all that money that's going out. But there's over 100 that are auditing money that is coming in. The rank hypocrisy that just oozes out of Ogden Driscoll is truly amazing. And my friends, there is a ton more where all of this came from. But I encourage you to go back and listen to yesterday's episode on the podcast. It is a pretty clear explanation of exactly who we're dealing with. And the guy that openly attacks fellow people, that openly attacks citizens, he's the one guy that, remember, don't forget what he did back in COVID. That he was able to get hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin for his family, but when it came down to doing the same thing for your family, he voted against it. Absolutely outrageous. All right, well, let's kind of move on. New subject here. We've kind of beaten that dead horse. Well, that's kind of a wrong phrase there. What I mean is we've kind of beaten that subject to a dead horse. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
It's a dead mule.
Dead mule. There we go. Anyway, a donkey. So yesterday I meant to play this soundbite, and it's from Chuck Todd, and he says that no one since FDR has had as much influence on America as has Donald Trump. And I don't know where you've got it labeled, but it's the Chuck Todd, no one since FDR. Go ahead and play that.
As it relates to Trump, how do you see him specifically as it relates to how impactful he has been historically?
Oh, I put him, look, I don't think we've had anybody have this much impact on the country since FDR.
Wow.
So I think when you look at it, you know, and that's what I mean, for culturally in particular, certainly in how even our politics is conducted in that sense. I think the question is, does he have impact on policy for decades to come? But I think culturally in particular, and certainly on our political identity, I think he's had, not since FDR, we had this kind of a president with, look, he wants to involve himself in everything. FDR involved himself in almost everything.
Including the...
You know, Chuck Todd realizes what he just said, and then he tries to turn it negative in the rest of that soundbite. And I don't need to play it for you. You can just imagine the stuff that he said. But he's right, that nobody since FDR has had this much influence on the country. And the question is why? It's not that like Trump has this, like the Democrats want to paint him, that he wants to be a dictator, that he wants to run everything. That's not it. It's that the Democrats have screwed so many things up that there's, in 4 years, I mean, it's amazing what he's been able to take care of in the first few months of his first year. But the Democrats have screwed so much stuff up, he may not be able to get it handled in 4 years. And so to do that, you got to be involved in just about everything, because the Democrats were. Joe Biden was. All the people that were controlling him were.
I want to talk a little bit about, let me get the right button again, a lot of switches and stuff. I want to talk a little bit about these executive orders.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that Chuck said in there is also true. You know, how much policy change has he made that will last? Executive orders
That's a good point.
Are subject to the whim. Of course, it's a good point. I made it anyway. If you think about the things he's trying to do, and as much as he's trying to do in a hurry to show the polar opposite of what's been done over the last 12 years, this is the only opportunity you got to show the contrast. If you had to wait on Congress to make all these things, which ideally is the way it should go. But I think, for example, with Washington, D.C., where he's talking about we're going to take over for a brief period of time. We're going to show you what it could look like. And I believe that there will be so much pressure on Congress after that, where people have seen an alternative to the way things have been done, that there will be a mandate to actually start making some change. As much as I dislike the idea of executive orders, I think in this case they make sense because it allows him to demonstrate, in no other way would he be able to do it, what is possible, what we have even forgotten about is possible. And in many ways, that's what the Freedom Caucus is doing in Wyoming, is we're showing a whole different way that things could be legislated, that the legislature could operate. We may not be getting a lot of long-term things done, although I think we are, but we're showing the people another way things could happen.
Well, and I think that's a good point. That Donald Trump's way of governing is entirely different than is the Democrats. But that being said, he's there's a lot of things that he's trying to do, pardon me, through Congress. But the Democrats and Joe Biden did so many things through executive order and the auto pen. I don't think it was Joe Biden that did a lot of this stuff, but there were so many things that they did through executive order that it takes an executive order to turn them back around. And the problem with a lot of this, as you rightly point out, Ken, is that it can be changed on a whim. And historically, and it's there's really nothing in the Constitution that allows the president to issue an executive order. There's nothing in there. And in fact, George Washington, all the way back to him, he issued, I think, 2 of them. I'll have to go back and look, but it wasn't very many. But really, and one of the interviews with Harriet, and again, another soundbite I need to go dig up, but the way Harriet describes it is an executive order is no different than Harriet saying, okay, staff, you are to capitalize the first letter of every sentence. Now, that executive order applies to her staff, but you can't very well call Chuck Schumer's staff and say, hey, guys, I know that you're used to, screwing up grammar, but I'd like you to capitalize the first letter of every sentence. She can't do that. It doesn't work that way. But the American executive is so huge. I mean, just to mention a couple of the executive branch offices, the Forest Service, the BLM, DEQ, all of those, EPA, the IRS, all of those are under the executive branch. And so while the big stack of executive orders seems to be pretty big, there's a lot of changes that the Democrats made through executive order to those agencies in the executive branch that have to be changed with executive order. Now, to your point of showing a different way of governing, I think that that's entirely true. I think that it's absolutely appropriate. Just think about what happened yesterday with the Kennedy Center honors. Now, why does the U.S. president need to be involved in the Kennedy Center? He doesn't really, but he wants to be, to reshape one of America's premier theaters, premier venues, and recognize some people that the liberals who controlled the Kennedy Center never would have recognized. Sylvester Stallone, really? Are they going to recognize him? What about Kiss? Ken, you probably would not recognize Kiss, but they have a 40-year body of work, never had a #1 hit, but I'm pretty sure just about everybody has heard Rock and Roll All Night or, Love Gun or Beth. Beth is a song I'm sure everybody's heard.
Yeah, when I was in high school, Kiss was at the top of the heap.
There you go. See? I mean, even as ancient as my producer is, Kiss was still at the top of the heap. But the point is that there are so many things in our country that are off kilter that have to be reset. And, the president is very willing to do that. Now, the way the Freedom Caucus is running things in Wyoming is interesting also, because for a very long time, Wyoming has been run by the elites. The Steve Harshmans, the Nancy Case, Tom Lubnow, when he was in there. It really was a government for the elitists and not for you. And I think that that's changing. At least I'm getting the sense that that's changing. The 5 and dime plan, very much related to like the everyday lives of Wyoming citizens.
Yeah, I often say government of, by, and for the government. And we evidenced it earlier when we were just talking about how committee meetings have been run.
Yeah.
If you're an agency, if you're a sitting legislator, if you are a what's the expert on the subject. All of a sudden, I lost the word. But
subject matter
yeah,
expert
yeah.
or whatever.
Well, we get ambushed in Ambushed Alley. If you're getting
Lobbyist.
paid to be there as a lobbyist, then you're going to be given all the time that you want. If you're LSO, you're going to be given all the possible time that you want. The only person who is left out, has been left out, is the people, and that's who we work for.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's an entirely different way of looking at things. And again, I mean, I go back to Steve Harshman when he was chairman of Revenue, or I mean, whatever other committee he was chairman of. There have been a lot of them, but all the time. Hey, we've got like 15 minutes left. Whoever wants to testify, after the legislators and the lobbyists and the agencies have testified. Well, then, I mean, we got some time to fill. You little people, you can come and beg for your alms from the dais.
yeah, we got some motions to go through.
Yeah, we got a motion to go through. Whatever. So here's another piece of evidence of the impact that Trump is having. Washington, D.C. You heard Representative Hageman mention it during the interview that the National Guard is working with law enforcement in D.C. But one of the ways that you can tell that policies and that the administration is having a positive impact is when the liberal news media starts to come around, because they realize the jig is up, that their lies are no longer going to work. Let me just give you an example. Play the video, Ken, that's marked Morning Joe DC Crime. Watch this one. Maybe, if we can find it. Sometimes. Perhaps.
This is a fascinating story because so many people have been calling me over the past couple of days going, Washington should have gotten involved years ago. This place is dangerous. It's a mess. It's a wreck and whatever. And then they'll go on Twitter, this is the worst outrage of all time, the shocking, which I understand. It's like people need to express their concerns about Donald Trump going too far. We saw what happened back in 2020 with the National Guard. Certainly can't have any repeat of that. Don't want the federalization of the entire city. But man,
all right.
I don't care what the crime.
All right, so that's good enough. So it's Morning Joe Scarborough, who one of the, I mean, the typified redcoat. I mean, that is Joe Scarborough. When he was in Congress, he claimed to be a Republican, and obviously he's had a show on PMS NBC for so long, nobody would ever consider him a Republican ever again. But even Joe Scarborough was saying, hey, D.C., it's kind of a cesspool, and there's a whole bunch of crime, and don't tell anybody, but we're pretty happy that Trump is bringing in the National Guard. In fact, according to the Washington Reporter, in an article entitled, Thank God, President Trump's historic takeover of D.C.'s safety praised by residents. And I quote, President Donald Trump's historic takeover of D.C.'s safety received an outpouring of support from new and longtime city residents who told the Washington Reporter that Trump's move is necessary for the continuing function of American government. For far too many in America's capital city, crime has become a haven for murderers, sexual assaulters, drug markets, and more. And despite the city having plenty of redeeming places and people, the risks are outweighing the rewards for many. One female Hill staffer who pays $3,000 a month for rent, which is ridiculous anyway, in the Navy Yard, told the reporter, quote, that she saw someone get arrested the other day in my lobby, like at 5:30 p.m. Someone also got shot in March, and a blood puddle was left overnight, and everyone saw it in the main lobby, she said. For the first time in years, Trump's announcement has many in the city feeling hopeful. One GOP veteran told the reporter that he felt safe walking around his neighborhood again, where he and his wife were nearly shot in broad daylight. For the first time in 3 years, he feels safe again. I haven't walked that way before tonight when I saw the police out in full force. So it's the common sense idea that, hey, maybe if you enforce the law, things will be safer. And you won't have to worry about getting mugged when you walk out on your front step. But that's been the reality of people living in D.C. for a really long time. And, it is the media narrative that, and you heard Joe Scarborough say it, like, privately, liberals will say, well, crime is really bad and don't tell anybody, but, we're really happy that Trump's doing this. But out in open, when it's, on TV, oh, it's a takeover. And here's another one from CNN. This one's actually kind of funny, but it kind of backfired on him. Play the CNN video. It's called CNN, Trump is Batman.
Let's get right to what America's talking about. Donald Trump makes himself Batman, and the nation's capital is Gotham City. The President of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief, and he's taking over Washington's police force. It is a move that the D.C. mayor is calling unsettling and unprecedented.
Yeah, so in an attempt to denigrate President Trump, CNN actually makes him seem quite a bit cooler. Trump is Batman, and this is Gotham City. The media is beside themselves because, like Ogden Driscoll, they are drowning in the truth. And that's what happens when you've been telling lies for so long, when you've been misleading your constituents for so long, when the truth finally comes out about what you're doing and who is doing it and how you're voting, you end up drowning and you don't know which way to turn, which is why, if you look at those comments on my episode post from yesterday, that Ogden Driscoll is all over the place, that he doesn't know which argument to take up. It's taxes, it's the budget, it's the minerals committee, it's nuclear stuff. And, granted, he was getting hit from all sides yesterday. Probably still is. I haven't looked at the comments during the show, but he absolutely was getting hit from all sides. Well, that's what happens when the truth comes out, is that you are shown to be the flounder that you actually are. And the media, it's happening to them, the Democrats in D.C., they're finally having to admit that, okay, yeah, Trump's right. We need to do this.
I appreciate your use of flounder there, but I was thinking more of a cockroach when the light comes on.
Oh, no. That's Pinocchio Joe McGinley and the Frontier Republicans like Tom Lubnow that use that language. All right, so see, we're at the bottom of the hour. Let's go ahead and take our last break. And when we come back, we'll finish up the show. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Thursday. I'm your host, David Iverson. And this, my friends, is holding lawmakers, legislators, and other liars accountable. That's what we do on a daily basis. And,
I, for one, think it's really important. Let's try to keep honest people honest and keep the liars at bay as best we can.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And one of the sound bites that I loved from the episode yesterday. Let me see if I can play it for you here. Let me find it here. Just a second. It's the last one I ended with, and well, maybe. Oh wait, I know what it is. Maybe you should go look yourself in the mirror. Well, I can't find it. Anyway, Augie says, you should go to bed at night and look yourself in the mirror. I couldn't agree more. I think some of these liberal politicians should do that more often. Now, one of the things that's happening overseas in the UK is very similar to what we were experiencing in Washington, D.C. and other American cities. And that is, pay no attention to the crime. Crime is not really a problem with people, that is just invading the rights of other people and harming them. No. Really, it's a social problem, and we need social workers to fix it. Well, according to Breitbart, and they've got a little piece entitled "Shop Owners Told Not to Post Pictures of Shoplifting Suspects by a UK Regulator." Now, the only reason why you would do that is that you don't want normal, everyday, average citizens to know that crime is nearly as bad as it can, because you've created a city that functions on social justice. And that is absolutely the case in London with their Islamist mayor. And that's exactly what's going to happen in New York City when Zoran Mamdani wins. And I hope he doesn't, but somewhere in the stack of stuff, I have a piece that says he's got 44% of the vote in current polling. So it kind of looks like that may happen. But in the UK, people are being told not to post pictures of shoplifters. And I quote, "A government agency has advised British business owners not to shame shoplifting suspects, not to shame them by posting pictures in their shops. Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, has issued an advice warning that, quote, it may not be appropriate to post pictures of shoplifters," the Times of London reported. According to the data watchdog, it would be appropriate for businesses to forward information to police or to share a suspect's identity with managers or fellow shop owners. However, it said that it would be wrong to post pictures of thieves in shop windows or in public areas like lampposts. The ICO stated that posting pictures in staff rooms or sharing them with other businesses would also be wrong. The regulator reportedly said, quote, "You must only share personal information in a way that's proportionate and necessary to achieve your purpose." The advice comes in the wake of police demanding that a vintage clothes shop owner in Wales take down a sign describing shoplifters as scum, as it might be taken as provocative and offensive. Now, this comes on the heels of the free speech police that now exist in London, which honestly, Ken, I'm a little concerned about the honeymoon that we haven't been able to take yet. One of the plans that the lovely Christine and I had was to travel to London.
Thank you for clarifying, because I am not going on a honeymoon with you.
Thank God, no. The lovely Christine and I wanted to go to London. She wants to go there because London is the fashion capital of the world, or at least it used to be before they let an Islamist take over. And I wanted to see 221 Baker Street. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fanatic, and even though 221 Baker Street really didn't exist before the Sherlock Holmes stories were written, it does now, and I want to see it. And so we planned to go to London, and we still plan to do that. We just haven't been able to find the time to schedule it. But I'm a little concerned because they do have a law that if you post something negative on social media, you can be arrested. You see, countries in Europe do not have the First Amendment like we do here. And so there you can be arrested for, quote, shaming a shoplifter. And if you want to know where this country was headed under Joe Biden, that's it. And Ogden Driscoll, and I know I keep hammering this, but you hear him use the word misinformation and disinformation all the time. That's what he's referring to. That your opinion is somehow disinformation or misinformation. I don't know what the two means. Those words are stupid, but basically, that's what's happening in the UK. So another update from the Obamagate narrative from Just the News this morning. Comey's media mole told the FBI that he shaped the Russia narrative, and he needed discount to deny leaking the intel. The FBI confirmed illegal intel leaks, but rounded up no offenders. Declassified memos have unmasked Comey's secret media conduit, a law professor whom Comey put on the government payroll. The FBI concluded numerous legacy news media stories that crafted the false Russia collusion narrative contained illegally leaked classified intelligence, but failed to definitively identify the leakers. But agents did force a stunning admission from an ex-FBI director, James Comey, that he used a special conduit, one of the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times authors, in his bid to polish his image and push for a special prosecutor to take down Donald Trump. Columbia University law professor Daniel Richman admitted to agents he interviews that he routinely communicated on behalf of Comey, his longtime friend, with Times reporter Michael Schmidt, whose work was among the newspaper's 2018 Pulitzer Prize-winning stories on the Russian election interference. So they cooked up this whole conspiracy. They leaked it to the media. They then used the media reports as the basis for FISA warrants. And then all along the time, they gave themselves a Pulitzer Prize for doing it. This entire thing was orchestrated by Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and Barack Obama. So, I mean, just an update from what's been happening with Obamagate. And another one here. Let's see here. So the Texas standoff with the Democrats seems to be coming to an end. The Democrats will reportedly return to the State House. Now, just to fill you in on what happened, and this is something that has been irritating me for a while, that everyone in the media, save this program and perhaps a couple of others, are completely mispronouncing the word gerrymandering. It is not gerrymandering. It is gerrymandering because the term is named after Eldridge Gerry, who created the first salamander district. It looked like a salamander, which is why they called it gerrymandering. But what really irritates me is that word is being used synonymously with redistricting. What is redistricting? Every census, at least in Wyoming, every 10 years, it happens when the N number of the year is a 0, there's a census taken. Every 10 years that happens in the U.S. And the Wyoming legislature establishes a committee to redraw legislative boundaries because populations change and your citizens have to have the right representation. And in our House districts, it's roughly 10,000 people. And in the Senate districts, it should be around 20,000 people. So our legislature gets together and they redraw the legislative boundaries. But when you draw irregular shapes to benefit your political party, that is referred to as gerrymandering. And it is, unfortunately, it's legal, kind of. You have to have a vote on it, and if that map passes the House of Representatives and the Senate, then those are the legislative boundaries for the next few years' elections. Now, it can be challenged in court. That's happened in several different states. And I know during the last redistricting in Wyoming, there was a lot of discussion of whether or not their map would be challenged in court. And to my knowledge, it wasn't. But the news media is using that term synonymously with redistricting. Redistricting is different. And, you know, I heard it was on Glenn Beck this morning, and he was talking to Ken Paxton, and I've got a soundbite from it. Play cut number 1. This is Ken Paxton and Glenn Beck talking about what they call gerrymandering. Go ahead and play that.
Yeah, the Democrats don't like the fact that the Republicans are going to do some gerrymandering here, which is done everywhere else. So they have left the state. This is the third time they've done it. So what is their plan? What should happen? And what are you?
So this interview happened before this piece came out. This came out on the 12th when it says, the Democrats are returning. So this is Ken Paxton before the Democrats decided to come back. All right, go ahead and continue.
As the Attorney General and the governor going to do about it?
First of all, it's pretty ironic that they're going to Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts, 3 of the most liberal states, and some of the most gerrymandered states in the country. I think Illinois might be the most gerrymandered. If you look at Illinois and how it's drawn, I think 82% of the members of Congress are Democrats, whereas 48% of the population votes Republican. So it doesn't match up even closely. So they leave Texas as the Democrats, the 51, some of them go to Chicago, to a state that is completely gerrymandered. So it's really hypocritical in my view. What they're doing, as you've already mentioned in the prelude to talking to me. So the goal here is, I honestly would have locked them up when they were in the House. Texas House Speaker could have shut the doors and kept everybody in. We've done that. We did that back in 2003. And once the doors are locked, you can't get out. And you spend the night there and you vote. And they could have done that. They did not do that. So they let the cat out of the bag. The cat's gone. So now you either arrest them, which you're not going to get help from jurisdictions like Illinois, Boston. You're not going to get help, Massachusetts, or New York. So arresting them is not likely scenario until they come back. What has happened in the past is our governors have waited them out because ultimately many of them have to come back. They have jobs, they have families. They're not going to live in Illinois. It gets cold up there. New York's cold, Boston's cold. So they come back and we vote. And every time we've ultimately been successful.
Okay, so the Democrats are on their way back because, they can't live where they've ran to. And it's fascinating. He brings it up that the Democrats ran off to states that are notorious for creating legislative districts that are weirdly shaped. And I showed everyone the maps of Ken's district. Ken's is, what'd you call it, the ice skating duck? I mean, that's pretty much what it looks like. But, the claim is always made, well, we have to draw it this way to get enough citizens. Well, the truth is you could probably draw it in equal squares and it would be just as effective. But there's politics involved in it. And certainly the people that were in charge of Sheridan County definitely engaged in some gerrymandering, though they wouldn't explain it. So according to Breitbart News, I think this is Breitbart, yeah. Sources told KTRK that the lawmakers believe they have completed their goals, those being the Democrats. The Texas Democrats who fled the state to avoid a redistricting vote have decided to return, according to multiple sources. Republicans had threatened to cut off their paychecks and even vacate their seats if they didn't return to allow a quorum and proceed with official business. Democrats have been trying to shut down the approval of a redistricting map that some say would give Republicans a 5-seat advantage in the U.S. House. Quote, members are still assessing their strategies going forward and are in private meetings to make decisions about future plans. About their paychecks and about keeping their seats. Now, it's not, and this is the source of my frustration, that there are many states that have 30% of the population that voted for Trump, 40% of the population that voted for Trump. California has a large contingent of Republicans, and yet Democrats have 43 seats in California, and I think there's only like 9 that are for the Democrats. Well, legislative district boundaries were drawn to benefit Democrats. And so in the state of Texas, if you redraw them and set it right, well, yeah, it's going to end up with more Republican representation because those districts are drawn correctly, or at least they're drawn fairly. Maybe correctly is an inartful term, but they're redrawn to be fairer. And when the Democrats have been artificially advantaged, well, yeah, it's going to look like the Republicans are giving themselves an advantage, but the truth is just redrawing it so that things are a little bit more fair. Well, the Democrats have decided to return, and they got to buy groceries, man. You can only hang out in Illinois for so long, and I'm sure those people in Illinois were getting sick of the Texans, even though they're fellow Democrats. But anyway, looks like that's coming to an end. From the Daily Caller, and I haven't tortured my co-host with this quite enough, the Sydney Sweeney ad. Now, I don't think that there is a single red-blooded American male that is actually offended by the Sydney Sweeney ad. I mean, it is a hot girl in hot jeans as an advertisement. That's what it is. And in one of them, she's standing by a hot car, a really nice-looking Mustang. But the Democrats tried as much as they could possibly try to get people to be offended by the Sydney Sweeney ad. And the only people that were really offended were all the folks that participated in advertising where, let's just say that the jeans were not so flattering. Lizzo, for example. From the Daily Caller. A new Gov poll confirms that normal Americans aren't really offended by American Eagle's new ad campaign featuring actress Sydney Sweeney. And that's certainly not a shocker. The backlash to the ad came mostly from the left wing, scolds obsessed with race and jealous of Sweeney. According to the poll, only 12% of Americans found it offensive. That number sounds about right. Most well-adjusted people who don't spend their days refreshing the PMSNBC opinion section every minute or combing through the LGBTQZXPWSD Reddit threads are going to find the ad perfectly normal. Maybe not clever, and maybe not offensive, just a typical advertisement that relies on one of the most tried and true advertisement strategies ever, that sex sells. He's breaking the left's monopoly on advice and columns and hot takes, and you add a little humor. And this is what happens. Okay, so it's a great ad with a hot girl that is definitely humorous. There's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. I just lost the word. Anyway, they're using the word jeans spelled with a J synonymously with jeans spelled with a G. Donald Trump has great jeans. But go ahead and play the video, Ken, that says, I think it's titled just Sydney Sweeney. This is American Eagle's response to all these criticism.
Hi, I'm Sydney Sweeney, and I'm from Spokane, Washington. I can work as a local hire as well, though, and I'm available for the American Eagle jeans campaign shoot.
Profile and hands, please. Thanks. We'll be in touch.
Sydney Sweeney has great jeans.
Well, the ad says Sydney Sweeney has great jeans, is and always has been about the jeans. And it's typical liberal outrage. And, it just shows you, and it's just like the video we played yesterday. And I know that was painful to watch, but I think it was revelatory as to where the left's at. And we all kind of assume that the left in America they're kind of bonkers, that they're really off the rocker, that they're so far to the left that most Americans don't agree with him, which is one of the reasons why so many people voted for Donald Trump in such big numbers, that Americans are not that far left. And the truth is, I would say that America is probably right of center. That if you took a poll of everybody and you averaged all the results, you would find out that Americans are probably just a little bit right of center on average. Similarly, I think if you look at Wyoming, it's probably a 60-40 split, conservatives to Democrats, maybe a little bit tighter, 55-45. But the electorate does not respond well to outrageous stances that are taken by the radical left wing in America, and trying to say that an ad that clearly advertises jeans with a hot chick is somehow offensive. Ken was being a little prudish when we played some of the other ads, but it's just a commercial. And as Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and it's got to be miserable to be a liberal. The lovely Christine and I were talking about this yesterday. I played the video that we showed you yesterday on the program, and her comment was, it must be miserable to be those women, that you're always looking for outrage, that you're always criticizing, that there's always something wrong, that you can't just look at a situation and be happy about it. Somebody always has to be demonized. Somebody always has to be oppressed. What a horrible way to live. And can you imagine being married to one of those women from the video we played yesterday? I think that would be a miserable experience. And it's just, again, it's just the liberal left wing in this country showing you exactly who they are. And it's not dissimilar from the radical Democrat and redcoats in this country, being lost in all of the revelations about where they're actually at. And, make no mistake, the liberals in Wyoming are just as crazy as the liberals in other places. They're just more talented at hiding it. Let's see here. Here we go. I pulled an article just for you, 29. And I don't know if you'll be able to speak to this, but yesterday we were talking a little football news, and so I found one for you. From the New York Post, John Gruden is ready for, quote, truth to come out in the legal battle with the NFL over leaked emails. Do you remember that, 29? Where John Gruden was fired from being the head coach of the Raiders, and it was over some leaked emails. Well, it's finally going to court, and rightfully so. Going to court takes a while, but here's what it says from the New York Post. Former head coach John Gruden is looking forward to the, quote, truth coming out over his allegations that NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell had leaked disparaging emails that Gruden had sent before his resignation as head coach. So he resigned. He wasn't fired from the Raiders in 2021. In a statement to ESPN, less than 24 hours after the Nevada Supreme Court ruled in his favor to prevent the league from forcing Gruden's suit into a closed-door arbitration, the Super Bowl winning coach reiterated his claim that the league had a hand in the whole situation. Quote, I'm looking forward to having the truth come out, and I want to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. The emails in question were published by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Slimes in October of 2021 and showed Gruden using racist, sexist, and anti-gay language in messages sent to then Commanders general manager Bruce Allen in the years before Gruden's coaching tenure in Las Vegas. And remember, and most of us have tried really hard to forget the Me Too movement, but in 2020, 2021, that was the height of cancel culture. That if an email or a picture surfaced from years ago, then you were held accountable for it, and you were that person. And just think of how many people were fired. Another great example is Parler. Do you remember the social media platform Parler? I really liked it. In fact, I signed up to it, and I advertised the podcast on it a lot. Of course, podcast was pretty new, and Parler didn't stick around for very long. But they were entirely deplatformed. Their servers were shut down. Amazon decided to stop doing business with them, and Parler was no more. It was the height of cancel culture. It was the same time when Brett Kavanaugh was in his confirmation hearings, and Christine Blasey Ford came out and accused him of a gang rape that happened when he was in college. Of course, I mean, all of that she was proven to be like off her rocker. So she's still making money off of her ridiculous claim. But that was the height of cancel culture. And these emails from John Gruden surfaced, which allegedly showed him using racist or sexist language. Now, he was forced to resign. Now, the thing here is, and this is a tough one for me, because as an employee, you represent the company you work for. And most employers are not going to put up with too many shenanigans from an employee. I mean, think about this, right? If you work for a law firm and you're the guy that goes out and gets boozed up on a Friday night and you get a DUI. Okay, so maybe you slide by on the first one. Everybody makes a mistake unless your name is Bill Novotny and you can make several. Or, Christy Antoinette Haswell. Perhaps you could make more mistakes and not get punished. But the law firm that you work for, they're not going to put up with that for very long, especially if you do it a second time. And you could do stellar work in your capacity as working in the law firm, but you might be fired because your leisure time shenanigans are just too much. It's a bad reflection on your employer. Now that's a little bit different than what was happening with cancel culture, and we still see some attempts at that. Now, one of the more Wyoming examples was the now mayor of Gillette, Wyoming. What was his name? I'm having a hard time with names and words today. But anyway, before he was elected mayor, Shea Lundvall is his name. He was a city councilman, and he liked a cartoon on Facebook. And though he never should have resigned, the then mayor at the time of city of Gillette forced him to resign, or pressured him into resigning, and he did. Then he ran for mayor and he got elected, and now he's voting with the Democrats. But anyway, and a perfect Wyoming example of all of this cancel culture stuff. Well, now we're 4 years removed from that entire time, and John Gruden's in court, and the likelihood that any of this is going to stick, previous emails he did when he wasn't even coach of the Raiders, in his suit, I hope that it goes through. I mean, I got really sick of all the stupid cancel culture stuff. All I can say, Ken, is thank God there were not cell phones around or picture phones around when I was in college. And they certainly weren't around when you were in college. But
well, I was in college for a few minutes.
About 10?
Yeah, about the time that they found out that I was there. Asked me to leave the campus. I'm afraid I can't comment on that much for two reasons. Number one, it's not really about football.
No, it has
just
nothing
because
to do with
somebody.
football.
Yeah, thank you for admitting that. The other one was in 2021. I was out wearing out boots, going door to door, and I missed a lot.
Yeah, it's true. When Ken was out campaigning, I'd call him and be like, "Dude, did you see this? Oh man, I've been going door to door. Oh, when are you going to be done with that? Never." And it still hasn't stopped. But the cancel culture nonsense, I would like to say that it died a quick death, but I don't know that it really has. I mean, there's still some people on the left that they'll try to dig up something that you posted on social media years ago and use it against you. But, the way that you fight against that is to just come out swinging. Oh, really? That's what you got? Uh-huh. So an email that was sent 15 years ago, just really ridiculous. And, we've got to get to a place where we're dealing with truth, which is exactly what today's installment of the program is all about. Hey, this is the truth. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't care if you like it or not. Here's the truth.
Speaking of which, listen to this. We've played it before, but it kind of fits with what we're saying.
You were told that Hillary had a 98% chance of winning the 2016 election. You were told that COVID came from bats. You were told that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. You were told that during Joe Biden's presidency, he was cognitively fine. You were told that Trump colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election. You were told that Trump built cages at our southern border and was keeping children in them. You were told that Trump called white supremacists very fine people. You were told that Joe Biden had no knowledge of Hunter Biden's business dealings. You were told that January 6, 2021 was an insurrection. You were told that Trump called our fallen soldiers suckers and losers. You were told that videos of Joe Biden shaking hands with the air and talking about recent conversations that he had had with deceased world leaders and forgetting his own cabinet members' names were just cheap fakes. You were told that an El Salvadorian national who was an alleged gang member, wife beater, and human trafficker was just a good old dad from Maryland. You were told that Trump and Putin are very good friends. You were told that plexiglass, a mask, and standing 6 feet away from someone would prevent the spread of COVID. You were told that healthy children and pregnant mothers should get the COVID vaccine. I'm just wondering, at what point are you going to start to question what you're being told by our media?
There you go. And I don't think that we could say it any better than that. My friends, we've got to have the truth in our conversations. We've got to demand the truth from our elected officials, and we have to hold them accountable. Augie, that's the whole point. And that's why this program exists. That's why you listen to it, because I give you the truth, hopefully sometimes in their own words when I'm able to. Well, that'll pretty much do it for today's installment of the program. Tomorrow, the interview with Gabe Saint, president of Turning Point USA at the University of Wyoming. It's an interview you don't want to miss, and we'll do it tomorrow. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy.